Hey, what's up you guys? So this is I know it's only like a week in. Well, it's only been a few days, but for me it's been like a week of using Wonder Woman and having the game and kind of understanding the mechanics. So this is more than likely going to be updated, you know, in time. But as of now, this is my understanding after like grinding it a lot of hours with her so far. As to like how she fits and her playstyle and like trying to break her down, you know, so that, you know, anybody else that's gonna use her can understand her more or less like a lot better. So for this first part, I'm gonna break it down into like her strings and her specials, because they're incredibly short. Like the list of it is very, very short. So, you know, you can kind of merge the two. So her normals, they consist of, you know, like a 6-frame down one, so it's a really good punish. I don't want to keep inputs on, no. Her down one is a 6-frame punish. You can go into down one 2, which would go into your, you know, like a full-blown combo if you do a shield toss. But it does have a gap in between the two hits, so you have to be careful when you use this on block, depending on the kind of matchup that you have. So you have that, you have your 1-1, or 1 itself, which is a high, it's 8 frames. Being that it's 8 frames, it's not like the best punisher, because a lot of things are safe in the game, but you do get a little bit of damage if you decide to use that instead of the down 1. Like your down 1 is your fastest starter for a punish, but it does the least amount of damage as your other combos. Back 1-1 would be like the same thing. It's a little bit on the slower side. It is, let me double check, 11 frames. It is safe on block. The first hit and the 2 hits together, they're both safe. And you get your biggest damage off of doing this move. But as you can see, the range isn't all that great. Like, you reach them about here, but past that, you're not really touching them at all. Your next best one would be your standing 2, because it would reach them at about that range. It's still not at the greatest distance, but, you know, it's still useful. And this move is 10 frames, and it's also a mid, so that helps. So 2 on its own is also safe on block, as well as 2-2. And that's kind of it. But I'm stopping to think about it, and that's really all of her go-to like combo punishers. So then covering the other stuff, she does have like her back 2 from the old game, from like the first Injustice. So, you know, it is a good footsie tool. It is part of her mix-up up close, technically, because that's the overhead, and then her forward 2 is a low. And both of these two on their own, they are safe on block. So I mean, that's kind of good, but you don't ever want to really be within this range for the most part, like in any matchup, unless you're fighting against like a really heavy zoner and you just want to stay on top of them. But that all aside, that's what those two moves are. From back 2, you can go into the back 2-3. It's not that practical. It's very unsafe on block, and there's a big gap in between those 2 hits. When it comes to your forward 2-3, I mean, it's a combo launcher, which is good, but it is very unsafe on block as well. Like, it is full combo punishable. Her standing 3, it's just its move on its own, just like that, and you can cancel out of it. So it's decent, and it's plus on block too. And it's a 14-frame startup, so it's a little bit on the slow side. It doesn't have that much range. The only place I ever really use it would be in the corner, where if you're like jumping in at them, like with the jump in 3, you land, and then you just do that for the plus frames. And if it hits them, you can hit confirm off of it afterwards, as you can see, for like a little combo. And that wasn't even optimal, but that was just, you know, on the fly. So then kind of going back to the other strings, you have 1-1-3, which is one of your go-to enders. You have so many plus frames off of it. Like, it guarantees a trait setup, and it guarantees you whiffing an Amalthea bash, and you'll be right back on top of them. So you actually don't really like lose any meter because you build additional meter by doing that full-blown string and then whiffing a whole other special. The only problem with this move, somewhat small problem, is that there's a gap in between these two hits on block. So this move itself, it is plus on block, it is +2, but there is a gap. It's not a large enough gap where they can poke out. They either have to parry it or armor out or backdash. So it's good in that aspect because they have limited options to get around it, but it, a gap is still a gap. And the same kind of goes with her 2-2-3. 2-2-3 is also a decent ender, does a decent chunk of damage, and as you can see it knocks in full screen, so you can set up trade if you'd like to. For this move on block though, it is +12 from that last hit, but there is a massive gap in between those two hits on block, where they can throw out like a poke or a standing normal and punish you out of it before that last hit even connects. So, it is very, very situational. You do have to condition the opponent, like, to respect your stuff if you ever want to throw it out. And then her back 1-1-2, that one also has a gap. A small gap also, the same as like 1-1-3, but, a gap is still a gap. And there's no real purpose for using this move, in my opinion. You can't cancel out of it, you don't get a combo out of it, you can't follow it up. It's just safe. It's not even plus on block. It's just safe, and there's a gap in between it. I personally don't even see the purpose in ever throwing out this move, unless you kind of just like accidentally throw it out and manage to hit them like with the straight hit, because it's like it doesn't hurt that you're safe after. So but that's kind of it for her normals. Yeah, I covered that one too, that there's a gap in between the two hits. This move is borderline safe, because it's -7, so if they have a 6-frame reversal, they can punish it, but most people will not have that kind of special. And if you cancel into something like a meter burn, what's that move called? Heavy shield smash. I'm just gonna call it the floor cancel, the floor bounce. If you cancel into your floor bounce, you gain armor, so it's gonna beat out any reversals they try to throw out. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'll cover that in like the meta portion and whatnot. So, lastly, you have your forward 3, your back 3, and your down 3. Your down 3 just because it's quick. It's a low. It's her sweep. It's safe on block, but it's 15 frames. So it's a little bit on the slow side. You can't really utilize it that much for its low profiling properties, like in the neutral, just because of how slow it is. But if you're like full screen and they're throwing mids at you, you can use this to like evade, stuff. Her back 3 is 27 frames, so it's decently quick for a back 3, and it is +6, I believe, on block. Oh no, +7, the other one's +6. So yeah, it's +7 on block, so you do have plus frames off of it. And you obviously gain your combos off of this. And then her forward 3, like I was mentioning before, it's +6, and this one is 29 frames in startup. So it's not too bad in speed. And yeah, that's kind of it for her normals. You have like your jump in 1. Your jump in 1 is decent, more for doing combos and kind of just like a quick get in, or like if you're trying to air somebody, I would suggest doing the jump in 2 instead. As you can see, it kind of just like hits more horizontally, because you can't jump in like on them with this. As you can see, like it's so weird when you actually have to hit them with it. Like your jump in 2 is mostly used for the air to air, same with your jump in 1, but you can use the jump in 1 to like jump in on them. And the jump 1, depending on how you set it up, you can create like a cross-up setup in the corner, like that, as you can see. So then lastly is her jump in 3, which is an incredibly good jump in. As you can see, it has massive range, covers a lot of space, and it's safe on block. And if you manage to hit them in the corner, then you know you can convert off of this, you know, for a little combo like that. So that's mostly it covering her normals. I think that's about it. So now, before I'm going to go into her specials, I'm going to cover her trait first. Her trait is Hippolyta's, is it light or is it blessing? Yeah, Hippolyta's light. So what it does is that when you activate it, as you can see in that bar below, throughout that entire duration, you're going to have whatever buff it is that you have at hand. And you cannot activate trait again until this thing runs out and recharges itself. So as you can see, it's running out while it's filling up with red. Now you can use it again. That entire time, from the first frame that you activate it on up until that red bar fills back up, you're stuck with whatever buff it is that you have. And I don't mean to say stuck in a sense that it's like, oh my god, like you're forced to use it, like you kind of are, but each one does have its own benefits. So for Artemis, sorry for the voice crack, what she does is that whenever you parry something with your bracelets, she gets a small damage boost for like a few seconds. With Artemis's blessing though, if you do parry something, it significantly extends the duration of your damage boost, and it does add even additional damage onto it also. When you have Hestia's buff, it buffs all of her lasso attacks to do additional damage, but that's all that it really does. So it's basically like anything from like 1-1-3 to like her down 2 to her back 2 to back 2-3, like it buffs all of those things. But that's all that it does. It doesn't actually change the properties of her lasso base attacks. When it comes to Athena, she buffs her shield base attacks to do more damage. So like your shield bash does more damage, and the upward one does more damage, and her forward 3. All of those get additional damage boosts onto it. But it also gets the added benefit. Let me see if I can get it again. No? Oh. Okay. But it gets the additional benefit where any of your shield tosses, whether it be up, straight in the air, downward air, or the straight one when you're grounded, every single one of these will eat up any projectile that it comes in contact with when you have that specific blessing on. So it's a really, really good anti-zoning tool if they have a little slower projectile, so you can do it on reaction. Or like if they're throwing stuff out at you like orbs, kind of like Dr. Fate, and you have that on, you can like do an instant jump and have that downward shield just completely eat up those orbs and, you know, punish him for it. When it comes to Hermes, he gives her access to an air dash. And as you can see, even though the forward dash is really, really good, I think that this is one of the best tools for her turtling game. Because you can see how far back she flies just by doing the backwards one. But that's all that it does. And then when it comes to Demeter, what this does is that it reduces all of the damage that she takes, like on chip and whenever she gets hit. I'm not sure exactly the percentage, like how much less, but she does receive less damage from like everything that touches her. I think it's like a third less. So that's covering the trait. So now when it comes to her specials, she has a very, very limited amount of specials in this game, more so than the other one, just because, you know, she only has one stance in this one. She's not switching between two. So to start off, like real simple, you have your bracelets, which will parry highs, mids, and overheads that make like physical contact, or like have specific properties, even if they're weapon based, that allow her to, you know, parry it. So what the parry does, like I was explaining before, it gives her a small damage boost, but she doesn't do any actual damage from parrying them. Like, she doesn't take any damage because she parried it, but she doesn't deal any damage back. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I mean, you not taking any damage is always good, but the fact that you're kind of just like throwing out a special and you're not really gaining anything out of it, you know, doesn't help that much some of the time. So on top of parrying all those type of moves, it does also eat up projectiles, where it doesn't deflect them, but it just like eats them up. And whenever you do parry something, you do get, your recovery does reduce. So let me just show you this real quick. as you can see, I'm holding down. You can see how long she takes to move downward. Oh wait, why is she doing that? Why did I put this one? But when you parry something, you can see how much faster she recovers so that she can punish them. But as you can see, the recovery isn't that great, that you won't get to choose like whatever punisher it is that you want. Like you can't go into a back 1-1 a lot of the times for your optimal damage. You're gonna have to settle for doing down 1-2 into the shield toss because that's the only thing that will connect. So that's what I mean by it's like it's good and it's bad, because if you're not frame perfect with it too, like I mean you will get the down 1-2, like you will end up hitting them, but they'll just end up blocking it. So you know, those are like just the general cons of it. But aside from that, it's really good at eating up projectiles and dealing with zoning, because as you saw how quickly she recovered just by parrying it, you do recover that quickly from zoning too. And there's a thing that when it comes to the zoning, she does have a few frames of invincibility, where if they throw multiple projectiles and she parries the first one, the other ones will actually just travel right through her for a couple of frames. So it's good in that aspect too. And I don't know if it's just projectiles or if that happens anytime that she parries something. Her next one would be like her lasso grab, which is a high. And as you can see, the massive range that it has, you know, so, and it's only 15 frames, so it's a really good neutral and footsie tool. And it catches people out of the air also. Let me try to back up a little so you can see. Like you can see how big that hitbox is. So you do have to get the timing and like distance down, but once you get it, it makes people really afraid to like jump in on you. And it adds to her turtling game. And with this one also, you can meter burn it to boost up your damage. Like you see it did 197 on the meter burn, this one only did 134. So it doesn't add too much, but it does add a decent chunk, like if you're trying to close out a round. So I guess I'll go into the Amalthea Bash. So Amalthea Bash is this advancing special. This is one of like your best mobility specials, or one of your best mobility moves, because as you can see, it has really good recovery, where you can get punished on recovery if the opponent like knows what they're doing. But for the most part, if you're not going to be like directly in their face and you just whiff it right there, you manage to cover all of this space and you're not going to get punished for it. And you didn't have to like really spend any resources on doing so. It is technically punishable on block. It is -10, if I'm not mistaken. I just double check. -16. That is a bold lie. Even at point blank range, it is not 16, not -16. But it is punishable. But the further away that you do it, the more safe it becomes. See, and it's 8 frame startup. And that's what I forgot to mention. Parry, it's 5 frame startup. Lasso grab is 15 frames. And this is 8. So it's a really good reversal. Also, if you do it point blank, so you can see you can get punished. But as you can see, I barely moved back and I was able to make it safe. And even when you do it further away, it makes it even safer. So there's that. On whiff and on block, you can meter burn it. As you can see, I meter burned it on whiff, and here I meter burned it on block. So what meter burning does is that it adds that little bit of extra chip, and your plus afterwards, your +2. But the further away that you do it, again, also the more plus frames that you gain. I'm not sure exactly how many more plus frames you do gain, but you do gain a few more. But the thing is, she can't really take advantage of this because, as you can see, she's so far away. Like, nothing of hers is gonna reach. Like, let's say she doesn't do anything. The only thing that's gonna reach, is her back 2. See, her back 1, her sweep, nothing here is gonna reach. So she doesn't gain any pressure off of this. It's more of just, it's a way to get in, it's a way to establish respect, and to basically like be able to move first so that she can, you know, play on reaction to whatever the opponent is doing. Then she has her upwards Amalthea Bash, which, as you can like you can gather from the name, it moves upwards. It's the same kind of move, but it goes up. And on meter, on block, on hit, or on whiff, you can meter burn it, and it goes into an overhead. It doesn't really serve that much use. It's an invincible wake up, which is good, but aside from that, like, you won't like really ever use this mid screen. How fast is this also? It's 13 frames. Your down 2 is better, you get a combo off of it, and it's 1 frame slower. So you're better off, you know, like using your down 2. Oh, I forgot to cover down 2 in the normals. Say your down 2 is like your anti-air, and you can gain a combo off of this, and it's really, really useful. It reaches at starting match point, and it's unsafe up close, but kind of like the Amalthea Bash, at a distance it does become safe. So yeah, like this move, it doesn't really have that much use, in my opinion, not mid-screen at least. It's unsafe, you can get punished. The meter burn as well can get punished, but if you hit them at a certain spot, like right there, like right like that, where it has that pushback, you can make it safe. But that's really it, that's the only real use. The only time you'll ever be using this really is in the corner to gain combos. As you can see. And yeah, like, I'm not even really trying just because I don't want to spend too much time doing this. But yeah. So then lastly is covering her shield tosses. Her shield tosses they're great. They're really, really quick. Let me just double check the frame data. It's 11 frames. Upwards is 10, down is 7, okay. So this is 11 frame startup, which, as you can imagine, for a mid projectile, that's pretty amazing. The only problem, or the only downside, is that it is very, very, very unsafe on block. Like, even at this range, you can get punished for it. Just to show. See, like, the only reason why she didn't even punish me was because that move didn't reach in time. See, even there, she's still punished. And the meter burn as well is also very, very unsafe too. As you can see. The meter burn is safer, but it is still punishable. So this is also one of those things that you want to be careful when using, because if they have like a reversal, something that tracks you full screen, like either kind of like Ivy's Vines or Aquaman's from the Deep type of special, just to name a few specials, if you do this on block kind of from anywhere, they can full combo punish you for it, or they can at least get a reversal and punish you for doing so. But aside from that, it has great range. It is a mid, so that makes it even better because it can't crouch it. But yeah, that's kind of it. Like when you're turtling or when you're trying to get in on zoning, this is what you want to use to try to get in. And then also would be her downwards shield toss, which is only 7 frames, which is pretty amazing too. And this one is significantly safer. It's unsafe, obviously, at point blank range. Let me turn off my button inputs because they're gonna look ugly. As you can see, you obviously get punished right there, but if you do it from like this range, you're actually safe. So it's also a really, really good tool to use in a neutral. And it does catch people out of the air. It serves as a really good air-to-air, depending on when you do it and how you space it. And then lastly would be her upwards one. This one I don't really find much use for, unless you know that they're hovering up in the air, kind of like Gorilla Grodd. Like if he's trying to do a lunge at you or Cheetah's trying to leap at you, it's a good way to like hit them out. But aside from that, it doesn't really serve much use at all. And it's also unsafe on block. Yeah, as you can see. And all of these, you can meter burn them. I personally don't find any purpose in meter burning them. I mean, with this, as you can see, it's safe up close. But you know, you gain no combo potential if you hit them. And on block, at least to my testing, you're not plus. Maybe with this one you're plus, but I mean, you don't gain much of anything. You gain like a little extra chip, so I wouldn't spend the bar, you know, like on it. And then lastly, you have your air straight shield toss. Where's that one? And that one is 12 frames. This one is also incredibly good. It covers a lot of range, and my instants are not on point, but if you do it instantly, you actually can hit them on their head. I cheated, but still. But yeah, that's kind of, those are all of her specials, and this one too you can also meter burn. For whatever reason, I don't know. As you can see, it doesn't even like hit as 2 hits on block anyways, so it's a waste of a bar. But yeah, that's mostly it for her specials. I just want to go over all of this just to make sure. And then lastly, you have your super, which covers a lot of range. Like this is starting match point, and it hits them, as you can see. Like if you move yourself a little backwards, it still hits them. And it does a decent amount of damage on its own. It's not like the greatest super in terms of damage, but it is a good way to counter people. Oh, that actually did a lot more than I thought it did. It's weird. Maybe they buffed that. I don't know. But like if somebody's jumping in at you, or they're charging at you, kind of like Bane, then it is a good counter to those type of specials, or to those type of moves. I wouldn't recommend doing combos into super unless you're trying to go for that kill, just because it doesn't really add that much damage onto your combos. But yeah, that's about it for this portion. And the next one would be like discussing her meta and how to play her and her different play styles. So I hope that this part was of use, and take care.